Hello there. Let's have a look at different extremist threats in the Weimar Republic. Now, this is a really long and intense topic, so buckle down. Let's start off with political instability and extremism between 1990 and 1923. The range of paramilitary groups and examples of political violence also give a good indication of the extremism in German politics at the time. On the left wing, there are the Spartakists. They were a left-wing radical political group of revolutionary activists. They were led by Luxemburg and Liebknecht. There was also on the left wing Rot Frontkampf Verbond. They were the Red Front. They formed in 1924 as a paramilitary ring of the KPD, which is the Communist Party, to protect its meetings and demonstrations. The Red Front replaced the previous paramilitary group, the Proletarian Hundreds, which had been formed to protect KPD meetings in 1923, but then banned. On the right wing, there are Freikorps and Organisation Consul. The Freikorps were paramilitary groups of nationalist, anti-republican, mainly ex-soldiers. They usually worked with the army and so sometimes helped the government. The Organisation Consul were previously a Freikorps group known as the Erhard Brigade. They reformed secretly in Bavaria as the OC after the Kapp push. And also on the right wing, Stahlhelm, VVD and SA. Stahlhelm were a right-wing nationalist monarchist paramilitary group of mainly ex-soldiers. It acted as security for the German National People's Party, the DNVP. The VVD, the United Patriotic Associations of Germany, was an umbrella organisation to coordinate right-wing groups that aimed to overthrow Versailles and the Republic. The SA, Sturmabteilung, was the paramilitary ring of the NSDAP. It was formed in 1920. Now I'll be using the acronyms from thus going forward because the words are quite complicated in German. Let's quickly recap that. What were the left-wing paramilitary and revolutionary groups in Weimar Germany? The Spartakists were a left-wing radical political group. They were led by Luxemburg and Liebknecht. The Red Front were formed in 1924 and were the paramilitary wing of the KPD, the Communist Party. When was the SA formed? This was formed in 1920. What were the different left-wing uprisings between 1919 and 1923? Left-wing extremist groups led a number of serious uprisings between 1919 and 1923. The Soviet Republic of Bavaria was declared in March 1919. It was brutally put down in May by 30,000 army and Freikorps troops and the Erhard Brigade. Anyone suspected of involvement in the Soviet was summarily executed. The Hamburg Rising. On October 1923, the KPD ordered a rising. Only 300 took part, but local people supported them by building barricades and providing food. The rebels left quietly after a few hours. Nevertheless, about 100 were shot dead, 300 wounded, and 1,400 arrested. Spartacist revolt. Communist revolutionaries seized key parts of Berlin on the 9th to the 15th of January 1919. Ebert asked the army and the Freikorps to suppress the revolt. The leaders, Luxemburg and Liebknecht, were shot by the Freikorps. Ebert's request split the left wing. The KPD never forgave him. So what happened over the course of the Hamburg Rising in 1923? On October 1923, the KPD ordered a rising. Only 300 took part, but local people supported them by building barricades and providing food. About 100 rebels were shot dead, 300 wounded, and 1,400 arrested, and the rebels left quietly after a few hours. Who did Ebert ask to suppress the Spartacist revolt? Was it the French, the Red Front, the KPD, or the Freikorps and the army? The correct answer is the Freikorps and the army. What were the major right-wing uprisings between 1919 and 1923? There were several assassinations. In 1921, the OC assassinated Erzberger. He had been attacked by the right-wing press for signing the armistice and introducing tax reforms. In 1922, there was the assassination of Rathenau. Walter Rathenau was German, Jewish, wealthy, a nationalist, and also liberal and pro-republic. He was the founder of the DPP. Rathenau negotiated the Treaty of Apollo with the USSR in 1922. He was already a hate figure for the right-wing press, and the OC assassinated him. The Kuschrin Push, 1923. As Stresemann brought passive resistance to an end, there was an attempted right-wing push at Kuschrin near Berlin. Illegal paramilitary groups within the German army, called the Black Reichswehr, aimed to replace Stresemann's government with a dictatorship. Other Reichswehr units prevented the push. Its leaders were arrested for high treason and imprisoned. No one else who took part was punished. Consequence of the Kapp push. No action was taken against von Seeckt, who had refused to do it as ordered by the government. Participants of the push were treated leniently. Only one was punished. Over half were granted amnesty. Kapp died before he could be prosecuted. Participants in the of the Ruhr Uprising were illegally executed by the Freikorps. The leaders were tried and given death sentences. So, for context, the Kapp push in 1920 was led by Wolfgang Kapp, a Prussian civil servant, monarchist and nationalist, and General von Lüttwitz, a serving army officer. 12,000 Freikorps troops marched on Berlin. The army refused to fire on the Freikorps. Ebert's government fled to Berlin. A new government led by Kapp was announced. There was insufficient support for the push. Left-wing SDP and trade unionists organised a general strike in Berlin and an uprising in the Ruhr. So, to recap that, what were the consequences of the Kapp push? Nothing happened to von Seeckt, who had disobeyed government orders. Only one person in the push was punished. Over half were granted amnesty. Kapp died before he could be prosecuted. And participants of the Ruhr Uprising were illegally executed by the Freikorps. The leaders were tried and given death sentences. The Munich push. The Munich push was one of the most serious threats to the Weimar government. The context of it was Bavaria was a culturally distinct, independent-minded state that disliked both Prussia and the Weimar Republic. In 1923, Bavaria had a right-wing, nationalist, monarchist, anti-Weimar Republic government. The Bavarian government opposed Stresemann's ending of passive resistance in the Ruhr. It also thought his government too weak to tackle left-wing threats. At the end of September 1923, the Bavarian state government declared martial law because of upheavals in Germany. Plans for the push. Adolf Hitler and World War I hero General von Ludendorff planned to march on Berlin, overthrow the Weimar Republic, and impose a new government on Germany. On the night of 8th of November 1923, Hitler and the SA took control of a right-wing meeting run by Otto von Lossow and Gustav von Kahr in a Munich beer hall. Under pressure, Lossow and Kahr promised loyalty to the push, and Ludendorff to let them go. Meanwhile, the SA failed to seize the Munich army barracks. On the 9th of November 1923, Ebert called a state of emergency. Lossow and Kahr warned about and denounced the push. Ludendorff persuaded Hitler to march on Munich. He believed the army would support them because of Ludendorff's status and reputation. So the march on Munich went ahead. Hitler, Ludendorff, and 2,000 armed Nazis were met by soldiers and armed police. 16 Nazis and 4 police were killed. Ludendorff and Hitler were arrested. What were the consequences of the push? The leaders were tried in February 1924 for treason. Ludendorff was acquitted, and Hitler was given a light sentence of 5 years, but was released in 1924 in December. This indicates how much support there was in Germany for a right-wing government. The Nazi party, the NSDAP, was banned, and Hitler was banned from public speaking. But in the 2024 elections, the NSDAP was the third largest party in Bavaria. Hitler took advantage of his trial. He used his public platform to expand his views and gain national fame. While he was in prison, he wrote Mein Kampf, which would go on to become a bestseller. So what does the light sentencing of Ludendorff and Hitler reveal? Is it how little support there was in Germany for a right-wing government, or how much support there was in Germany for a right-wing government? The correct answer is how much support there was in Germany for a right-wing government. What was the context of the Munich push? Bavaria disliked Prussia and the Weimar Republic. In 1923, Bavaria had a right-wing, anti-Weimar Republic government. The Bavarian government opposed ending of passive resistance in the Ruhr. It thought that the government was too weak to tackle left-wing threats. At the end of September 1923, the Bavarian government declared martial law. What was the punishment of the Spartacus revolt in 1919? The leaders, Luxemburg and Liebknecht, were shot by the Freikorps. Ebert's request split the left wing, and the KPD never forgave him. Why was Erzberger assassinated? Well, in 1921, the OC assassinated Erzberger. He had been attacked by the right-wing press for signing the armistice and introducing tax reforms.